Good afternoon and welcome from Perth. Just get my camera pointing correctly, now we can see it. And I'm going to share my desktop because I've got a number of slides that we're going to show. So where's my share? There we go. Slide delay. That one out of the way. Okay. So we've got about an hour, so 40 minutes or so of discussion and then a bit of question and answer session at the end there. My name's Adrian Smith, as I said, I'm based here in Perth, put these slides together. Mainly because I went to site with one of our salespeople here, Steph, to talk about a potential training job for service desk people. And we realised there's lots of training for the back end. There's quite a bit of training for the end user, for using Outlook and OWA and that. But there's not a lot of training for the service desk people. So we thought we'd put something together, first of all as a webinar, and maybe follow it up then as a course, and put some blogs on our website and everything to cover this particular area. The content we're going to cover, we're going to look at some of the built-in tools that we've got within Office 365. We'll look at how we connect with the PowerShell and some of the PowerShell troubleshooting tools we've got, the commands there. Standard email tools that we can still use within an Office 365 environment, and then just a bit of a recap at the end of saying certain routine tasks and everything. A lot of it is all going to try and be preemptive. It is a cloud service. We are paying someone else to host it for us, in this case Microsoft. So we are really users. At the end of the day, we don't have things like queue viewers any longer. We don't manage databases and servers. We're paying Microsoft to do that. But there was a few things we need to check. There'll be a few commands and everything we can run to check how things are going along. The audience, anyone really that's interested in Office 365, supporting the mailbox users, troubleshooting any issues that might arise. We could also include mobile devices. We haven't in this one, but maybe that's one for the future, and also for the SharePoint features within Office 365. But currently this one's just all about mailbox users. I was lucky enough to go to America a couple of years ago on Microsoft's expense, and one of the slides I brought back for me was this one, which is a good one. Just a bit of an introduction into the cloud services and trying to explain it mainly to non-IT people, compared with basically ordering a pizza or making an actual pizza. Traditionally, we'd have to do everything, so that would be our own server rooms, where we have to go out and buy the hardware for the servers, we have to commission everything, do all the installs, do all the backups and the redundancy. So actually do everything. Virtualization came along, which then led to obviously this idea of the three pillars, the three main pillars for the cloud services: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. As you pay more money, they do more for you, but you lose control. That's the kind of equation we have. So infrastructure as a service, they've actually compared it as the idea of a pizza as take and bake. So in other words, we go to a supermarket, we buy a pizza that's pre-done for us, we can customize it a little bit, but we're going to have to cook it ourselves, add on all the extra bits ourselves and consume it at the end of it. Platform as a service is like going to get a pizza delivered. So you're limited a little bit on choice, not so much customization, but you don't need to have all the actual hardware. You don't need to supply, in this case, the oven or the servers. We're going back to IT. All the add-on bits we can do, and obviously we need the area to actually eat it, play around with the actual pizza, use the actual consume the pizza, I should say. Software as a service, that's the full package where we go out and order an actual pizza and eat it in a restaurant, we dine out. In that case, we don't need any of the hardware. It's all being supplied for us. Office 365 kind of fits between these two pillars, really: platform as a service and software as a service. It's arguable which one, depends what feature you're looking at, I suppose. SharePoint, Exchange Online, or installation of Office Pro Plus. But certainly between those two areas. So bearing that in mind, and Microsoft, we're paying them to do everything for us. If we do start getting issues from users, where's the first place we look? We can't look at queue views. We can't look at the status of servers and things like that so easy now. So we've got to rely on the information that Microsoft gives us. And the first place, of course, is the service health. If there is any issues, they should highlight them and should give us an estimated time when it's actually going to be back up and running again. This one was last week. There was an issue with SharePoint, and they did tell us that the estimated restoration time is going to be at a certain time and date. How do we know all this information automatically? Well, traditionally, we've been able to subscribe to RSS feeds. However, it's gone or going if it hasn't gone already, so we can't use that any longer. Their replacement, it's not a direct replacement, is we can view the messages that appear within the Office 365 Admin mobile app. It is a mobile app. There is 3 versions of it, one for Windows, one for the Androids, and one for your Macs. In fact, I have a look. I have it open already on my computer. Here we go. So it's not only able to see all the messages, and there's a little message here saying everything's good. We can also see the health of the different components of Office 365. Green's good, and again, we can click on it and get a little bit more information. But we can also use this utility to actually play around with the users. I've just set up a 325 user test account here. I can see little information about my users. You can click on the user. We can change a few of the settings and everything from our mobile devices. We will need to sign in, of course. I've already signed in to speed things up with my admin user here. So this is one of the replacement tools we've got now. We can see some billing information. It also gives some information on migrating as well, and actually on the feedback if we've got any questions or any queries with this. It is changing. If I go to the home picture, that's how it looks currently. I think there might be a new version out any time now, but if you look at this, that's how it looked last week. So that's the joy of working with cloud, of course. We're not in charge of things like that. It's being done for us. For Evergreen, it's continually changing. Hopefully changes are for the better, and a good thing in this case. So there's one tool. Obviously, we've still got access to the tools folder. Here's a bit of anonymous at the moment. There's no tools option within the new portal. You might have noticed there's a new portal out now for Office 365, just like there was for Azure. It's in preview at the moment. Whether it will stay in preview quite as long as the Azure portal did, we're not sure yet. But there is a tools option in the old portal. We can still switch to the old portal, but there's not a tools option in the new portal yet. That might change. Here we've got some tools that we can download to do certain troubleshooting. A lot of this is follow my leader type stuff, really. We have to specify what the issue is, and it will point us in the right direction and collect some information so we can analyze it. This is also some wizards for doing the deployments here. Extra tools, more tools. There's a whole series of tools we can actually use for doing troubleshooting. I'm sure you're aware of most of these, so I won't spend too much time with it. I've already actually logged on to my portal. This is the new portal. There is no tools folder. I can check certain options here, pretty much the same as what I did on that mobile app, where we can actually see the health, see the service health and everything, but there's nothing for the actual tools there. So what we can do, if I go home, is we can move over to the old portal, Admin Center. And in there we do get the tools option. Come on. And then we've got all the different shortcuts to pull up the different standalone tools. A lot of these, you need to download them first. Actually, I'm on a trial. We want to get to buy a subscription. And there's our more tools option. I think I've actually got it open already here. So what they do here, they give you some links to some tools that Microsoft have based on 3 basic categories: on the enterprise size organization, on a medium-sized organization, and on a small organization. And we just click on the links. It also gives you some idea of the tasks that actually we can use that particular application for to try and troubleshoot. There's also your do-it-yourself troubleshooter. That is a follow my leader thing. You answer questions and they'll point you in the right direction and tell you which tools to try to actually collect information on that issue. Some of the tools in more detail, some of the standalone tools. One of them that's been around for a few months now, the Client Performance Analyzer for Office 365. This one can be used just to collect the information on the connection between the clients and the Office 365 to make sure all the DNS, the ISP is working correctly, that we've actually got ports open on the firewall. It also collects information about the operating system the user is using, the browser, the hardware configuration. Some will do the traces. It has 2 columns of information which you run it, one which is the expected value, and then one which is the information it's actually collected. It is changing all the time. Every time you open it up, it tries to see if there's a newer version, and we can actually then run a test against it, in this case Exchange. You can also use it to check the performance of the SharePoint as well. It's about updated version, and then we can run against Exchange, we run against SharePoint. I need my address to go in. That'll take a little bit of time to report back, and it'll give me something like this that we can then export on if we want to as well. And it'll give you some recommended figures and expected value, and tells you whether you're going to be greater than or less than those particular values. So it's a good one. Just check the performance of how the actual client's getting onto the data center. We've also got the Office 365 Admin Center. Some of these aren't actually configured yet, so I guess this is a work in progress, like a lot of things on the actual cloud. And I go in, there we go. We've got some shortcuts then to do some certain tasks and collect some diagnostics information against Outlook, against OWA, do some mail flow troubleshooting as well. So it's another tool that's available for us. That's available on the URL configure.office.com. That's the Office 365 Admin Center. Here's another one that's pretty new as well. I think it might still be in beta at the moment, or in preview. The Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant. So again, they all do roughly the same kind of tasks. We need to sign in with this one, and then we can click on the different options we want. There is some advanced diagnostics we could do, and again, it will collect some information, point us in the right direction. I got that one loaded on my desktop as well, so we'll just have a quick look at that one. There we go. So I would need to sign in with my address. I've just left it as on Microsoft account at the moment because it's only a 30-day one that I'm actually using. With this super secure password. And we'll have those options to go through. Again, it is you're taking the lead and then giving you suggestions on how we actually fix things if things have gone wrong. Maybe I'll come back to that one in a little bit, but you can see the different options that we've actually got there. There is some useful stuff in the new portal. There might not be a tools option down the side, but there is some reports, and there we can get some actual usage reports. And we can delve down by clicking on each relevant report as well, some more detailed information. On my little test environment, I haven't actually got a great deal of activity going on. So we go back in. That's taken into the old portal, so we go back to the new admin center. And we got the top. We got the option for reports. So go this way. You can see some usage reports. There we go. There's very little usage going on. There's a little bit of exchange. Not a lot on Skype Business or Yammer, funny enough, yet. And I've got some activity from my different users. If I click on it, I can then break it down further and go into each individual user that I've actually got. There's not too much happening on my little test environment here. We can also get to the security and compliance reports display as well. Not all of them, but there's some shortcuts to some of the useful reports that we can pull on. In theory, you can generate your own reports. It's all got some API that we can actually use and generate our own reports as well if we want to. So some of the useful tasks and that might be might need to do to fix anything. Again, maybe because we haven't got things like queue viewers, so we can't check see if anything is actually stuck in the queue hasn't actually been delivered. So one way we can do it is to do the message trace. Now the message trace is there on Mailflow, the message trace, but there is a little trick if you want some extended information. Also, if you want to export this information and do something with it outside of Office 365. The little trick is on the date range, make sure you choose custom. And then when you choose the actual date selection, make sure you go back more than 7 or 8 days. In which case, it will give us some extra information so we can grab some more message events and routing information, do a little bit more filtering on it. Again, I'm going to be a little bit lazy here. I've got a very small setup with only a few users with very few emails. If you're doing a trace, you'd be more specific on your actual searches you're doing for the actual emails. But we could choose pending and things when we do the actual searches and go through. I just check this one out. So, okay, could have gone down there, couldn't I, to get into it. Go into the Exchange environment. And we've got some shortcuts, of course, but we've also got the mail flow and we've got the message trace. So I could choose custom. Until I do all that, I haven't got the extra options down here. Now I need to go back at least the 8 days, and now I get the options to do the choice of is it inbound or all, limit the actual search on the IP address as well. Put in some message IDs if we knew that. We could use the test connectivity website to find all the message ID information, etc. And I can go in here, pick out a particular user, and see what they've actually sent. I'm not sure they've actually sent anything, so maybe I'll use themselves. And then do a search. Now, if it was a simple message trace, it would return the actual search. Here, it's going to take a little bit longer. So if I actually refresh it by going in, we'll be able to be able to view the pending searches. And here's some idea just to check things out. It says it's not actually started yet. Once they have started, one thing we can do with the extended traces that you can't do with the standard ones is we can actually download that as a report. I think you actually have 90 days to access this information. After that, it's not available to you any longer, so we can actually run and do the traces and export the traces and then analyze it further if we want to. Probably got one somewhere. There we go. This one I prepared earlier. So it just puts it as a CSV file that we can open up with Excel in this case. It's a bit of information that we can then start analysing if there is an issue. The search might take some time if it's a large mailbox, so we need to filter it a little bit more. You can check the state of play of the actual search once you've started it off, do that pending and completed option that you've actually got. And once it has completed, we can download it as a report and save it as a CSV file. PowerShell. Number of areas we can connect to with PowerShell. Office 365 itself, and also then the different areas of the Skype for Business, the SharePoint, and the Exchange all need to be connected to individually. We need a global admin account to get in. 64-bit is only required if we're going to use access to the Office 365 modules or Skype for Business. We need a bit of .NET framework and Windows management framework as well. If you want to connect to Office 365, you will need to install the Microsoft Online Sign-in system. We'll also need the Active Directory module as well, the Azure Active Directory module for PowerShell. We need to open up PowerShell then as administrator. These two are actually optional because when we actually connect to Exchange Online, we actually open up a session and go in for a session, so we don't need to load any modules or anything beforehand before we actually use it. We will need to set the execution policy so we can run things. Remote sign being the recommended. We can also use unrestricted, but that's not too secure. If we do download scripts from the internet, they're going to run straight away without any warnings. I'm only on a little test environment, so I'm not too bothered seeing that as unrestricted. Then we can actually take our credentials, so our username and password, to connect into Office 365 and put them into a variable so we can then use them again and again in a nice secure manner. So once we do that, it's going to prompt us for our username and password and store it in that particular variable. And then it doesn't matter where you are, which data center you're using, what type of Office 365 account you've got. This is the actual command to go in to actually open up the session and then import it into the actual session. So we're creating a variable, we're going into a new PowerShell session, and this name is then going to be the same for everybody. The authentication we're going to use is basic. Once you go in there, so it's standard, and it's going to allow redirection. So that then is going to be redirected to wherever our actual Office 365 data center is. To give us connection to that particular server in there that we're using. So to go into the session, once we've actually created it, it's in for PowerShell session. Disable name checking, because again, we're doing all the redirection. We don't need the names. We're going to be redirected automatically to wherever it actually is. What I'll do now is actually I'll open up, which I've already done. Integrated scripting environment as administrator. It tells me it's administrator there. I've already run the policy this time as more restricted. So we're going to take my username and password and place it into a variable. So here we don't get anything back because all we've done is store the credential information in a variable. So this is the standard command that we use to connect into Office 365 Exchange Online environment. Again, there should be no feedback. You should just come back with the actual PowerShell prompt. And we just go into the session. And this then is going to make all those commands available. So if it's type my username and password and everything correctly, we should then start getting the remote module loaded with all the extra PowerShell commands for playing around with the Exchange Online. Being loaded. And again, we won't get anything back other than the prompt, really. So I've not gone into Office 365. If I wanted to go to Office 365 and play around with the MSOL commands and everything, it's a slightly different connection method. We need to make sure we have the module for the MS Online, and then we connect to the service. Again, we use a variable to store the credentials to make it easier. And then we can actually view, if you like, the top level area of Office 365. Look at the actual users, see what time they must change their password, see if the user's been disabled, that sort of thing. See if there's any errors on that user account as well. Extract the information. If I get a chance, we'll have a look at that one later on, but at the moment, I'm just going to play around with the Exchange Online. So I could run these couple of commands here, so highlight the highlighted ones, and it tells us what domain we're actually connected to, and information about the session that we're actually connected in as well. Good practice says, once we're finished in here, we shouldn't just close the PowerShell down, we should remove from the session. There's only so many connections you can have simultaneously to the Office 365, so if you're a bit lazy, just close PowerShell down, you may end up leaving out of connections. So let's have a look at some useful PowerShell commands now. Pretty standard stuff to start off with, like verb hyphen now. Result size, by default, it'll only return 1,000 mailboxes. I've only got a little test environment with 25 users, so there's not too much issue with the amount of data I'm actually transferring down, but obviously in a large organisation, there's going to be an awful lot of information coming down. So if I just execute that, we should get information about my mailbox users. I've got my 5 users, it's also displayed the system mailbox within the searches on. I can customize that. Obviously with PowerShell, every command has standard in, standard error, standard out that we can start redirecting, so we can do lots of complicated things on a single line. We can take the output of one command and use that as the input of another command. So for every mailbox, for each one, we're just going to retrieve their name. Send underscore is what they call a placeholder, so it's just going to loop through, checking the name of each mailbox we've actually got and exporting that onto the screen for us. Here we go. So rather than all the other information, it's just giving us the name in that case. Whereas this will give us everything. So get a mailbox for everybody and then select everything. It's got all the extra information. That's not so easy to read on a list like that. So what you can do, of course, is you can export it to a CSV file. So exactly the same. Get the actual mailboxes, select everything, pump it into the export. That little symbol there, continuation marker. This is actually just one single line, but just so you can see it better on the screen, I've just wrapped it around with the continuation. It's the back tick. It's not a speech mark, it is actually the back tick symbol. So if I highlight that, it's going to prompt me. My password, and it should then retrieve it into a CSV file. So all we need to do is open the CSV file within PowerShell. It's just put the path in for it, and it's also associated with the actual Excel in this case, and there's our little file with all our different attributes. Far too many, we want to customize it down a little bit with the select commands if we wanted to. Save that. So, some useful things we may get asked, who's got access to what mailbox? Why can't I access people's mailboxes? As an administrator, we might need access to people's mailboxes. So here's a little PowerShell command, just to give the, in this case, the admin account or any account that's got rights to that particular mailbox. So we're going to get everybody's mailbox. We're going to pump that into the add mailbox permission. For the user, that's myself, we're going to change the access right to full access. Auto mapping false. If I opened up Outlook, it would try to, or I could try to open up each individual mailbox that I had full access to within my Outlook profile and everything. I don't want that, so we're just going to turn it off. It's false. And there we go. It's taken myself and given me full access rights to everybody's mailbox. How would I check that? Normally, anytime I wanted to. So this is the command to actually do it. If I just did get mailbox and pumped it into get mailbox permissions, it would return absolutely every permission we had on each of the mailboxes. And it's a little bit hard to read. Some of them are inherited, some of them on the roles based. So what I can actually do is I can turn off the inherited. So is inherited is equal to false. The user is themselves, because they'll always have full access to their own mailboxes. For the user, that's anything to do with discovery, for the actual searches, and also we're not interested in that system mailbox as well. So if I highlight all this, it should be a little bit easier to read. There we go. So it's got the different mailboxes. There's myself, and I've got full access to all those different mailboxes. It's quite a handy little command to actually run. I can also remove. It was add to add the permission. Funny enough, it's removed to remove the permission. So again, we create the loop, we get all the mailboxes, we pump it into the remove. Are you sure with the removing permissions? Yes to all, and it's going to remove the permissions off it. So if I run this command again, we shouldn't get anything returned. There should be no one with full access to everybody's mailboxes. There is. It's just giving me the prompt. Other useful commands, I'm sure you could see some of these before. Get mailbox statistics, so we can see the size of the mailboxes, sort of things, what server it's on as well. Not that we can do a great deal about that one. Last log on time and log off time, which could be useful. Checking to see whether the account is still active. Eye on legal hold. If someone's doing something dodgy, we can actually place their mailbox on legal hold. You will need certain Office 365 subscriptions for this one, some of the more expensive ones. But then, if they delete anything, they think it's deleted, they can't access it from the mailbox, but we can actually access it without having to go to the backup and do a restore. So, has anybody got that on? You can run this little command to get mailbox, everybody, select objects, and we're just trying to see. It used to be called in-place hold or legal hold. The actual parameter name is a litigation hold. And users here, we've pulled up some information. Seth, we've got Seth on legal hold. It's holding it for 999 days, and it was enabled on that particular date. And so we can check that one out as well. Check if any emails are stuck in the outbox. So as we type emails, they go from the draft to the outbox. Hopefully get picked up and then turn up in the sent items. If some chance they're actually stuck in the outbox, we'd like to know. So this is going to go through every user, everyone who's got a mailbox, then pump the output for each user into the mailbox folder statistics. For every user, we're just looking at the outbox and we're looking to see if the items in the folder is greater than 0. And if it is, we want to then know about it, so we want the identity, the folder type, the items. So again, if I run that one, hopefully in my little environment, I've only actually sent about sort of 10 emails in total. There shouldn't be any emails stuck in the outbox. Takes a little bit of time because it's going through all my users, so maybe you'd put more of a select option on it if you have a large number of users with big mailboxes. There we go. So nothing stuck in the outbox. See who has permissions on each person's mailbox. So this one here is the send as permission, so they can send emails as that particular person. Again, get recipient permission. Where it's not themselves, we're not worried about that, and it's not equal to empty, and we just want the identity, the trustee, and the actual user rights. So that should give us, in this case, the only one I should have is Seth should have send as on Andy. Look at this, they do. The identity is Andy, and then the trustee is Seth, and he has to send as permission. So one of the ones. Send on behalf of, slightly different way, because a different way of actually setting it. We've got the get mailbox. Format table, FT is an alias, the format table, name, and then we've got grant send on behalf to. And this should pick out the fact that Andy has send on behalf over Gary. send on behalf Andy on Gary's mailbox. So there's a quick one checking that one. Recipient limits. Again, I'm using the result size unlimited, so we'll get everybody. Limit it to 1,000 if not. So I'll highlight that. We'll get 500, which is the default limit anyway, so we can actually send an email to a maximum of 500 people. The only one, funny enough, that's unlimited is the system mailbox doing the search results. Size limits. Get mailbox format list and then show the name, maximum send and receive size. Hello? Did I do wrong there? No, I missed the G off. Look. We don't just get bad commands any longer. We do get some useful error messages with PowerShell. It's quite nice. And there we go. So it's gone through all the mailboxes and given us the name and the actual maximum set, maximum receive size for the different mailboxes. Who's got archiving? Again, if you've got the right subscriptions, you should be able to enable archiving. So your main mailbox has a limit, but your archive, in theory, is unlimited. They give you but in theory, it can be unlimited. So if I run that command, the only one that's got an archive mailbox is myself in this case. If anyone's been hidden from the address list, we might need to know that one. So again, get mailbox, and then we're only interested in anyone that's been hidden. So that actual parameter there is actually set to true. So if I highlight that one, the only one that's actually hidden, funny enough, is the system one at the moment. So there's a little check we can actually do. Occasionally, we need to know who's been given rights over all this as well. And just check we've got the relevant people in the relevant roles or groups. So we've got these built-in groups. I'm adding them to a variable, and then I'm creating a little loop. So for every entry in that particular array, we're just getting the members out. All we're interested in is the name, the recipient type. And I'm just putting a blank line between each of the outputs just to make it look a little quicker. So if I run that one, the only one that's actually got any rights, hopefully, is myself. And I've been given discovery management rights. So I've got the other built-in roles there as well with no one in it really, other than those the default ones. You have also got your test commands, of course. Get commands, test, and then into the wildcard. It lists all our test commands. The one we're interested in probably. There's not quite so many as you've got with Exchange on-premise, with Exchange online, because we can't manage so much. If I highlight that one, it'll just tell us whether the backend connectivity for that particular mailbox is okay. It seems like it is. It's all valid. It's all true. It tells us a little bit extra information about it on what server again and what database it's actually on. There's all sorts of things available on the internet, of course. There is a PowerShell gallery with different scripts in. I found this one as we were playing the other day. Someone has actually put all that sort of thing that I've just done there into a menu system. You wouldn't normally just run it live on a test system. I run the whole lot, not just things. But we get a little menu system here where we can then put numbers into this task. It could have been made graphical, but they've just done it as a text format this time. So I can go into a certain mode, 8, and this one is just going to pull up the full access and send permission to a particular mailbox. So if I type in someone's mailbox, like Andy, I need the rights to go in. And it's going to tell me who's got rights on Andy. So it was set. I've not tried all the settings on this one. It is a little old, I think, when you look at the actual time and date, so there may be a new edition around to this sort of thing. But this shows you what you can then actually do. So you can have a certain tasks all pre-configured, which is the one good thing about PowerShell, I suppose, using repetitive tasks and book changes as we go on. So that it can be used to assign and also remove, revoke certain permissions and everything as well. I'll just exit out with 14 on that one. So there's some little bits of PowerShell that we've actually got. Some of the tasks that might actually be useful for playing around with the Exchange environment, Exchange Online. You might think that was easy to do. Export a mailbox to a PST file. If you've got on-premise, it is because there's a PowerShell command that's actually running. but unfortunately there isn't with Exchange Online, so there's a bit of a workaround to actually do it. We can go into the compliance management and then in place a discovery hold, pick the mailbox we want, and then we can choose to export it. Eventually, once we've run that first task, there'll be an option to convert it into a PST file, store it locally. It does a little download to do it. I should have the ability to do this one. So if I go to my Exchange admin again, so there we go. So start a new job. Still wants me to buy a copy of Office 365. I haven't used my free one. That was just the label for it. I'm now going to choose the mailbox that I'm actually interested in. So I'll choose Gary. Makes sense. Do I want his public folders as well? Please. Next. Do I want to include everything? I can do certain filters at certain times as well. I'm going to include everything. I'm not placing them on legal hold or in place hold. So it was mitigation hold, it was legal hold, here it's in place hold. I'm just going to export that information on. So it's going to take all the contents of his mailbox. Once it's done that, again, it's a very small mailbox, so it would be a little bit quicker, a little bit slow that production environment. I then get an option to export it to a PST file. And it gives downloads a little application. I've already used it before, so it's already got it downloaded. And we can browse to say where we actually want to place that particular PST file. We can't get away from them. Searchable items as well. And it's just going to create a PST file for me. So it's one way of keeping information forever, really. I need the rights to get in. Look, actually do it. And that should create the PST file for me. Again, it is a very small mailbox, so it won't take too long. It says he connected to the Exchange servers, exporting the information. Maybe I just go to the folder and show you what I did previously. I've got a few now. Look, so we've got the data output files there. It gives us a config file and every file as well. Just actually go through it. So we'll create a PST file from that mailbox, which could be useful. Here's a good little workaround as well that someone's actually stumbled across. If you have someone leave the organisation, we could just delete the user, and it keeps the information for 30 days, and then it destroys it. I think if you speak nice to Microsoft, you can then get it back for another 2 weeks or something, but eventually that data would be lost, and mailbox contents would disappear. We can get around that by placing it on legal hold before we actually delete their account. That way that mailbox is there forever. It's kept indefinitely, and it won't cost you anything. The license that was being used by that mailbox can then be reused. So it's a good way of archiving it. The scenario would be, because most people have this, if someone leaves the organisation and someone else is going to come in and take their role, and we need to fill and keep them up to date with what's happened in the past, so they need access to that previous person's mailbox. How do you do it? Well, just where it was before, in the compliance management, in place the discovery hold, and we go in and we place their particular mailbox on legal hold or in place hold, whatever they want to actually call it. We'll need rights actually to be able to do all that one. Then we can go in and just delete the user account. It's then deemed to be inactive. We can still access it. We can use the get mailbox commandlet with the inactive mailbox only and display which mailboxes are going to be kept there indefinitely, which then means we can use that and bring it across, restore it, or merge it into some other person's mailbox. How do you do that? Well, we need to retrieve the mailbox, first of all, so the identity. We're going to place that in a variable so we can actually use it again. And then there's a PowerShell commandlet, new mailbox restore, request, specify the source, and then the target, the new person. How do you want to actually merge it in? What we're doing here is creating a new root folder with the name inactive mailbox and putting everything in there. There is a switch we do need to use because the two accounts are not going to have the same username. We just need to make sure that it's actually restoring it to a different username. So there's a switch there. Other tools we've got, I'm sure you're aware of this one, the test connectivity. It has an option now for 365, but it has for a few years. So we can then go in and do a certain test and point us in the right direction if there's any issues. There's other external websites and all. This one is one I've used quite some time now. Sometimes they want money off you, sometimes it seems to be going through a 3-stage at the moment. So if you want to check things like your sender policy framework records and that sort of stuff, and your spam blacklists and everything, there's different tools there, but there's enough websites for that one. You can obviously do NS lookup and access your exchange online. So if I go into NS lookup, I'll change the actual record type to MX. It's case sensitive, remember with this stuff. It's then connecting me on. I can then query for my actual domain name, so ddls2.onmicrosoft.com is mine, and it will tell me information about the mail exchanger look. So that's the one I could then use to try and create an SMTP connection, even use a telnet if I want to go in there. So I can then use telnet open to that particular server with port 25, so it's using SMTP, and it should connect. It should then be able to say hello, and it should then obviously reply to us. We do mail from recipient to, and that's as far as I got, because I then got blocked here as well. There is a good link here that has information about how you can do all that, and then what commands you can actually do within that telnet environment to format SMTP messages and check that you can send and receive messages that way. So all this kind of goes together. Again, you're probably aware of all this sort of thing. There'll be certain tasks we do daily, and it might be wise to use the actual consoles for doing this, the portals, so modifying passwords and everything. You have got that little mobile app as well now you can use for that one. Mailbox is being forwarded externally or internally as well, creating new mailboxes. Shared mailboxes. Shared mailboxes has been out for a few years now, both on-premise and on the cloud. It doesn't take a license, and multiple people can access it. Funny enough, that's why it's called a shared mailbox. So weekly, we need to check maybe growth of mailboxes, check the audit logs, check anyone's registered any new mobile devices, whether they're accessing their mailboxes. I guess it's just this idea of the theft of those devices, maybe. It also says review shared mailboxes. You can't have an archive, I don't believe, on a shared mailbox. So your hard limit is 50 gig on that one, so check that one regularly. We can pull off reports, both in the new portal and in the old portal for there. So who's logged on recently? Why? I guess if they're logged on recently, there's going to be an active user, whereas if they haven't logged on for some time, maybe they're not active, in which case we can archive their mailbox, put it on legal hold, make it inactive, and use that license for someone else. We can also check if anyone's forwarding their mailboxes to their own private email addresses through Gmail, Yahoo, and Hotmail as well. Maybe we need to check that one out. Make sure we've got flexibility rules on, and people are resetting their passwords. Again, usage things and anything else. Check permissions that the send as. Full access, send on behalf of, that sort of thing there. Full mailbox permissions as well. Clean up your groups. We've got this idea of public groups, so certain users can create their own groups and manage their groups, so we probably need to keep an eye on all that, and also the groups will be great as well. And again, it says maybe check people have reset passwords, because maybe they're not using those accounts, so we can reallocate those licenses again. So it's very quick. We've just about done it in the time allowed. I think the areas we actually had a quick look at then, there's this new Office 365 admin mobile app that we can have a look at. There's 3 flavors of it for different mobile devices. Got the old portal, of course, in your tools folder. There's no tools folder in the new portal, but watch this space, that might get added. Client Performance Analyzer for Office 365, that's a little download. You run it on a machine that maybe has an issue, and it'll give you some performance stats and some guidelines so that you can actually see whether that client is good enough to access Office 365 or any issues you need to find out. There's also another standalone tool, Support and Recovery Assistant, which seems to be pretty new and going through a few changes at the moment. You need to sign in, and then we choose the different options as we go down. There is a few little useful reports in the new portal as well, so there's not the tools folder, but there is the reports option. We could do an extended trace, so we get more detail, but also we can then export it off as well as a CSV file, so we can access it, analyze it outside of Office 365. Tons of information with PowerShell, of course, what we can actually do. You can also export a mailbox. There's no single command to do it, but there is an actual method we can use to export someone's mailbox to a PST file, so we can, again, do something with it outside of Office 365 if we need to. Reallocate licenses. Terminated users, we need to keep their content, maybe forever, which we can, but we want to reuse their licenses so we get the best of both worlds. And there's the option of doing that now. And then certain routine tasks. So that's kind of it, really. Where to from here? There is a 4-hour clinic for Microsoft. It's reasonably old now, so I'm not sure whether that's any benefit to anybody. There is a course that covers the fast track. So if you've got a little test environment and you want to then speed that through to be your actual production environment, you can set up an account with E3 with 25 users. Speak to Microsoft nicely, and they'll extend it to 250 users, and also extend the days that you can have it. I think it's to 90 days. The idea being is any work you then do, you're not going to lose. You're actually going to use that in your production environment as well. So you put all this in something called fast track. This course is going. I think it's the end of next week. It's being replaced with this one. Same content, same type of labs and everything. It's just been updated because of all the changes on the cloud. There is actually an exam that fits exactly into that course as well. If you're really keen on PowerShell, there's a couple of PowerShell courses that we can actually look at. This is going to be recorded. I think it's going to be available on YouTube. I'm also going to write a blog, place on our website, so you'll be able to get all those PowerShell bits and pieces and the links and everything in there as well. So that kind of sums up my little presentation. Are you there, Rebecca?
Fantastic. I am here. Thank you so much for that, Adrian. It was very informative.
You're welcome. My voice is just about held up.
Now, do you need to hold that voice up a little bit longer because we actually got a few questions from our audience today. So Can we get into them? So I do have a question from Jeremy, and the question is there an easy way of getting a list of active accounts, for example, usage against licenses?
Yeah, you can run, obviously, the PowerShell commands. There's also a report, I believe, as well, that will actually give you, I can't remember if that's in the new portal or in the old portal option, but there's a report that you can actually run that will tell you then who's actually active and then the licenses that you've actually got allocated, and so just tally up to actually do it. So yes, there is the answer to that one.
That's great to know. And then I've got a question from Cameron. So you mentioned regularly checking who is forwarding the emails to external email addresses. Is there an easy way to do this?
Again, PowerShell would be the answer. There's 3 basic PowerShell commands that we can actually use. You've got your get mailbox, you get mailbox statistics, and then if it's the Office 365 account itself and the licensing and everything for that one, you need to use the MSOL user, so get MSOL user. And I'm sure there's the actual parameters on it, and it's something like SMTP address, forwarding address or something is one of the parameters that we could just list out. I can't remember which of those 3 commands it's on, but it's on one of those commands that you can actually find that, yes. Yeah.
Great. And then we have another question. Does Office 365 work well with Windows 7, especially OneDrive for business?
I'm sure Microsoft would say yes. There's lots of people out there still on Windows 7. I've not heard of anything over nastily with it, any issues particularly with it. There's a few billion users now using Office 365, so yeah, not sure. I've certainly not heard anything with any issues with Windows 7, no.
Okay, good to know. So there's another question here. Is there a way to test email flow is working correctly in a hybrid configuration?
In a hybrid one, we'll still have the use of the queue viewer on the on-premise side of things. There's no queue viewer at all, but we can also do the message trace that we had a quick look at. I didn't actually go into a lot of detail on the output from the message trace because of the time. But yeah, you can use the message trace. It's going to be the way within the Exchange online, but on-premise you've got the Q viewer that we can start checking.
Fantastic. And one more question.
And of course PowerShell.
Right. How can we forget PowerShell? So the question we actually have is, what license do we need for archiving emails on Office 365? Does E3 license cover email archiving solution? Is there
E3
any limit?
Does. I can't remember about E2, whether E2 does, but there is a little website, I might find this and put on our portal or something, where you can actually, it compares all the different licenses that you've actually got and what features each license gives you. I think it's in an Excel spreadsheet type format, but certainly E3 will.
Okay.
I can't remember. You might, you get it on the trial. I think you even get it on the trial as well, yes.
And do you know if there's any limits on Exchange online mailboxes?
There is a 50 gig limit on the live mailbox, but in theory there's no limit on the archive.
Okay.
And again, I think some of the plans might give you different sizes on that one. So again, this spreadsheet would be useful.
Right. And how do we
I'll try and put the
export
link out there. How do we export the mailbox? Or how do we?
So we actually export all OneDrive for business data once the user leaves the company.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check on that one. But again, it must be possible to do it.
That's all right. Well, what we might do is we'll take that one offline and we'll come back to that question.
I might have to get someone. Yeah, if someone emails me that one, we might have to have a look at that one and get an answer for.
Now, this is a really interesting question, Adrian. So, what is your opinion on implementing 365 in an environment with an average connection speed? Is there minimum advised connection speed?
Office 365, if you're going to be installing Office itself, so you've actually got the copies of Office Pro Plus, 365 Pro Plus and everything, then that may be an issue, of course. But we could always create it as a share, and people could actually install from a share internally anyway. But when you think about it, you're still sending emails over the internet, whether you're actually using an on-premise exchange. It's still going to have a connector out to the big wide world. People pulling up their mailboxes and everything, you've got your caching options and that there. There is some guidelines. There is some limits on the performance. You can have a look at that with some of the actual information from Microsoft. I guess it does depend how slow it is and how reliable it is, really. But at the end of the day, you still need an internet connection to send emails anyway.